And then for those of you who are interested afterwards, you can do one or two things, work on your presentation together, go do other work, which is totally okay. Or go with me and Ken, who should be in a few minutes. In fact, I think Ken's calling me right now. To go break bread. So, okay, since I can, I have my idea. So now you guys have to vet my business ideas. I got 2 of them. I'll only give you 1. So here's my idea. I'm curious as to whether this idea has been done, or whether you've heard anything like it, or whether it's an analog or analogs, whether there's tests involved, right? So we're going to run through the entire gamut of thinking through a business in like 11 minutes. And then you guys can steal this idea if you want, right? Because I just made it up. I just poop them out every day. Piss excellence. No, I'm serious. So, where this idea came from is, and I thought about the fact that we have jukebox discovery systems like Pandora, and then you have your own version of your local stuff in iTunes, and then you have Spotify, which is, if you guys are familiar with it, is a music sharing service. You can review and see other people's playlists. So what's missing for me is a different problem. So if I want to discover music that I haven't heard before, I know how to do that. If I want to listen to music that I already know about, I know how to do that too. And there's another service called Turntable. Anyone use that? Yeah. So Turntable allows you to be a virtual DJ for a bunch of people that you don't know. So where is the service that allows me to be a DJ for the people that I do know? Because I don't care about these people. I don't like them. I don't like going to Turntable because it's a web application. So downsides of this is people I don't know, and it's available as a website, not as a mobile, not on mobile. Spotify you can get on mobile. It's a subscription service, and I can get playlists, but I don't get any social sharing except if I use playlists. There's no interaction here, so this is like what works, what's missing. Recognize this. Analog businesses. You're going to help me come up with analog businesses in a minute, because then we're going to invent this business together. Once we invent it, we're going to go make a lot of money. And there's a joke at the end of this. So what's missing for me in terms of Turntable is that it's not available on the go. You have a sucky DJ problem. The idea here is that here the challenge is your music is being sourced by the crowd, and the crowd sucks. Right? This problem is different. This is I only can access this stuff via playlists, and there's no real social interaction. iTunes is great because I get to listen to exactly what I want to listen to, but there's no social involvement. And what I really want to do with Pandora, I have discovery. So I love all this stuff, but it's not what I want. What I really want to be able to do is have a service where I can connect to my friends, ideally near-term friends, like close by, where we can DJ for one another, and I can upvote, downvote what is in the queue. So, for example, if I'm walking around town and I've got 5 friends, so it's another analog business is Path. So sorry, I should have made that part of the story. Path is a social network that limits you to 50 friends. The idea is that basically what we're learning about the crowd and our friends is they all suck. We actually don't want to have them. They can't help you do things like curate music, and they can't help you curate news because your friends are knuckleheads, mostly. So what I want to do is have a small community of people I want to be able to DJ for them. I want to have a playlist queue of music that we can listen to. I want to be able to look through the queue and upvote and downvote so that I can pick music that I want to listen to, and by upvoting it, and the 5 or 10 other people that I are with upvote or downvote as well. By voting, stuff gets organized in the queue, and it plays through. And in so doing, me and my friends have a remote, synchronous, but distant social music experience. I've got a mobile app. I'm walking around listening to music. And the other thing that's different between that and Spotify is I'm listening to the music that me and my friends have selected and uploaded. That's my idea. Does anyone have that? Does anyone have an app that does that? Isn't that, how come, what's that? What is it?
All those things have bits and pieces of that.
Okay, but it doesn't do the thing that I'm describing, which is it doesn't solve the emotional connection of being able to connect with my friends and listen to the same music at the same time and to be able to vote, playlist up and down. I was hoping someone would be, oh yeah, there is one that's called like Wankster.m or something. Oh, okay, that is bad. So the use case is the 4 of you download the app, the 4 of you populate it with all the music that you have in your universe, including stuff from your Spotify library or whatever. You look through the queue and upvote it and downvote it. You can make fun of each other and put on Justin Bieber. You know who's doing this. And there's a second variant of this, which is the one in the workplace, which is now your workplace is a giant DJ booth in which the 200 people in your office are upvoting and downvoting songs. You get to see who likes what and why, and you get to annoy them and make fun of them and that kind of stuff. I don't know how the application gets monetized, and I don't care because I don't really care about monetization. I just like building cool stuff. That's my idea. What do you guys think?
When you say listen to the songs at the same time, you're talking all 4 are listening synchronous.
All 4, all individuals who are connected to my playlist are listening to the same songs at the same time.
Kind of like your own radio station.
It is kind of like your own radio. That's exactly the, yeah, go ahead.
Turntable does all of it except for the playlist. That you can, each of you have your own playlist.
That's right. So how, with the difference
But it's got mobile, it's got the ability to, like I can set up a private room and just have people that I know personally, like I've done this with my wife and friends.
Yep.
But I like the idea of having just a playlist that everybody sees.
But you're right. So turntable conceivably gets you 80% of the way there, right? And so your solution to this problem is a private room on turntable in which, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to actively DJ. So in order to, so you have a DJ queue. Can you upload and download songs on there, or can you just kick people off?
You can have both. You can have a moderator who kicks people off, or if everybody downloads a song, it's kicked off.
And is turntable available as an app?
Mm-hmm. On your phone.
Okay. So it's conceivable that one of the reasons that this hasn't been built is that 80% of the functionality exists. Maybe I can hack it and make it work with turntable. That would be awesome, right? Then I wouldn't have to build it.
So yeah, it's basically like an old school jukebox. This is live happening. Put in your quarters, pick your 3 songs. Your next buddy picks 3.
That's right. That's it. Nothing fancy, right?
Just a new spin.
Just over the internet.
Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of the days back when I was like 10 with a Sony Walkman and cassette player. My friend got a double shot for Christmas. I don't know what that is. It's like a little basketball game where you have the 2 hoops and you compete for points against each other. And we had the Bryan Adams, Robin. It was awesome. Hey, I was 11. Come on, man. But we had our tape Walkmans.
And you say that 1, 2, 3,
right?
go.
1, 2, 3, play. And we played at the same time. It's like, are you on the? And then you try to figure it out.
So yeah, my hope would be, so the actual use case for me is similar to that where with dorky friends, we just want to listen to the same music on our devices while we're cycling. So we're on a 150-mile bike ride, and the playlist is got identical playlists all at the same time. So Eye of the Tiger is playing, and we're making fun of it, or right? That's the use case. So it's the equivalent of the double shot, except it's the double shot. Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you're going to do it mobile, you should have mobile or noise?
It's the same class on the road, you're asking for. You're asking for spin class on the road.
Yes, I guess I am. So yeah, you're right. So it's the same scenario, right? One small addition to that, which I hadn't thought about, is the ability to synchronize spin class. I mean, fundamentally, I understand the problem is alternative solving makes a lot of sense. That was I'm trying to decide whether or not I should go build this app, because I'm going to do something this summer. I don't know what it is.
Would there be any like legal issues with it? I mean, I don't know how Spotify and Pandora like bypass that, but when you're creating lists like that and just giving it out, I don't know.
Yeah, so one concern on the legal hurdle side is I'm assuming if I'm using my own iTunes library, I actually may not be permitted to distribute or stream the music even in a closed system. Like it's completely conceivable. There's another side on which I could, which is the AirTunes allows me to do that. So conceptually, I can. Legally, I'm not sure. You're right. So there's a legal. If I were thinking about risks, right? One of the first ones that wasn't a technical risk, I'd be asking myself, am I going to get in massive trouble if I put this on the App Store? It's a reasonable risk.
If you're finding a steep hill, between hearing jacks or something like that, you basically do reception. Why not make this go away from mobile technology and go to YouTube technology?
Right, so there's another thought which is actually really helpful on the technical side. Maybe I want to use near field communication technology to avoid that problem. So there's one of the major technical hurdles is how do I handle variance in network coverage, like 3G or 4G network coverage, right? I don't have an answer for that. So if I were probing this I'd be asking myself that. Maybe one solution to that problem is to create and I'd have to see whether I can do this with a class of devices, and it's specifically whether it would work with Android and Apple to be able to create a virtual private network. I don't know the answer to that. That's a good one.
That would solve your legal question, because then you're making more or less
Yeah,
a
so-
small airplay.
Yeah, that's right. It's a mini airplay. So there are two decent risks that I had not conceptualized in the 10 minutes that I've been thinking about this problem.
I think Pandora gets around it by not allowing you to actually pick the song that you want, and then it creates a playlist of like songs.
Right.
I don't know about Spotify or Turntable too much. I'd be interested to hear about Turntable. Does it use your own?
You can use your own, yeah.
Yeah. And what I want to be able to do, like the thing that I would want to build is I want to be able to listen and recommend my own music to my friends, because I've got like the Twisted Sister Greatest Hits album. I totally want to inflict on all my friends. Right? That would be awesome. I mean, did any of you I like to take a car ride with friends, and you basically have dueling iPods, and you try to torture them with the worst possible 3 songs. So it's like the first one's like, oh, here's my 2. It's like the Brian Adams, Robinson, and then the other guy comes along and does 2 that are painful. You guys, that's what I have to do for a living. Or watch the same variant of the horrible movie category, which is like every other week I meet with a lot of my friends, and one of us has to find the worst movie to watch, and then we have to sit through the entire thing. The current reigning champ is Bangkok Dangerous with Nick Cage. If you guys have not seen that, I do not recommend it. It is soul destroying. There's scenes that are just so epically bad that I had to go to therapy to get them all worked out. They're really bad. So those are the sorts of use cases that I imagine with this thing, which is just it's mostly a mayhem generating machine where you're making fun, talking about my new business idea, which I invented 2 hours ago.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I'm glad you're here. Oh, I should also mention, I was having the worst day of my life until I drove Ken's debadged Audi supercar. He has this ridiculous car. It's an Audi. It looks like what's the kind is it?
It's an 8.
So it's like a debadged A8 that's been utterly hyper-tuned and has an internal combustion quad-sized nuclear fusion engine in the back. And it's awesome because it has 2 baby seats in there too. So it's just you're driving and it's so freaking fast. And it's just so dangerous, right? And it looks like a total normal guy sedan. Where he's
It is the mafia car of choice in Eastern Europe.
Is it really?
It is.
It's really awesome. Are you headed out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to the social thing and pay my dues.
Oh really? Are you doing right now?
Or brain damage.
Sorry.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So I've got one We have one presentation that if you were to wait 45 minutes or less, we could go together, we can both hurt each other.
Go back up there.
If you just wait literally 45 minutes.
After 45 minutes, we will miss the social event. We'd be stuck up there for the evening.
Are you gonna stay there the whole night?
The room.
I'll still come with you. So in this brief, so I'm gonna actually, I'll move it along because that way we can all like do other things besides listen to my business ideas. Less than 5 minutes, analog businesses, thinking through how the intersection of what the value is. 2 minutes of figuring out, in mind, we could have sat down and walked through 10 or 12 different risks to be able to rank them in terms of like, is this fundamentally a technical problem that we need to resolve, or is it fundamentally a, actually, so the three things you guys are coming up with are, first of all, you're saying, look, this is not a technical problem, nor is it a legal problem. It's I can do 80% of it in turntable problem, right? There's no there. So the first thing I would do, the first experiment I would run based on your feedback is I download a turntable, I get 3 of my friends to download a turntable, I create a private room, and I try to use it and see if it worked. If it did, abort, right? Stop working on it. If it's a technical problem, the next thing in the stack is probably the easiest thing to resolve is this a problem associated with, what is it called? Usage, I guess is the right word. What were the rights management associated with the distribution of audio content over either the 3G network or whether or not I have to build it using a VPN or essentially near field communications. Then the final piece, and the last interesting piece, and notice it's farthest down the stack, is the technical question. Precisely, what are the technical risks or technical issues with this particular application? It's not going to be signing people up. It's not going to be producing playlists. It's going to be figuring out how to synchronize communications. It's the double shot Brian Adams problem, which is making sure that everyone's listening to the stuff at the same time. Because it turns out that's probably a very difficult technical problem to solve. And it may be harder if I make a virtual private network of the phones that I produce, or it could be easier, and I simply don't know. And then finally on the technical side, once I figured those things out, there's one other technical hurdle that you guys mentioned. I can't remember what it is. What's that?
Legal issues?
So we got the legal issues. But I just wanted to point out that I wanted to get at, this is an exemplar, you guys are doing this stuff rapidly. And that level of feedback and insight in terms of handling sort order over the technical, market, or other hurdles and ranking them is really, really simple. And the whole point in all this stuff is simply to get into action. Knowing what I know now, if I wanted to go build this application, thanks to you, I didn't do any amount of thinking about this other than literally 15 minutes of thinking. I now know, I can walk out of this room and know exactly what I'm going to go figure out in order to figure out the salience of this idea. Of course, the last major hurdle that we didn't cover, right, which is lurking in the back of the room, which is how on earth would you monetize this particular application? And there's 2 obvious choices. One is have it as a 99-cent app, right? And another is,
The size of the number of people who can listen.
Yeah.
The first 4 free.
Thanks, you just solved my problem. Yeah, first 4 free. I figure out some number that I download the application, let people use it, figure out what the mean number is, let people use it to the mean, and then they go above it, charge more. That's a perfect example. I'll give you 10% of my company. You solved my biggest technical hurdle. You're my CTO.
How big?
Well, if you went with, excuse me, if you went with ads like Pandora, as long as you have people voting for them, like here in Rockland, I could pick one that I think was releases that Rockland, it's not that, washing machine.
Yep.
So if you could vote advertisements for your brains too, like the song.
That's cool. That would be torturous. Yes, I could do that too.
Just kind of bring it back to the spin class model. If you're running a spin class, just try to, every time you log in, you're splitting the funds with the company that's hosting the site, and then you're getting part of the funds, being the teacher of the class, you know, and then joining the outcome or choosing the software now.
This, and what you're describing, by the way, is interesting and a completely different business built adjacent to this, right? Which is just as interestingly beautiful, solving a different problem. Which is you actually want to have group exercise happen at a distance and combining some of your core technology here. You can imagine 3 weeks from now pivoting to doing something like that. It's utterly reasonable. So let me give you one final example before I move on to you guys. So here is so do any of you guys, I mean, I hope that you don't. I hope none of you are familiar with this application. And none of you have downloaded it. Because a long time ago, circa 2008, 9, 8 and 9. 2008 and 9, this was the most powerful app, most popular app on the App Store for a short period of time. And then was a super popular app for TV and media, and I think it is still one of the most popular apps for, I think it's the most popular app for TV guides. What is it? It's really dumb. It's simply licensing existing TV guide technology that exists from a TV guide provider, building an iPhone wrapper, and putting it on the App Store for free. More than 1 million downloads later, this is a business, and it had there was no more to that than some guy saying, I want to have a universal remote in which I want to know what's playing on television and being able to select it using the ITV application. And then because your phone has an IR component to it, you will say, change my channel so I can watch that thing. That was it. That was the entire thing. So putting that thing up and then getting 1 million downloads created so much crazy in the world of television remotes and media property players that they all descended on this company, which is located in Provo, Utah. And you can imagine the sorts of people that would want universal remote technology. For example, Logitech. I would want a universal remote, so a hardware company. Software companies who have their own hardware might want to take the underlying ITV application framework and throw that onto their universal remote because it was pretty. What are other things you could do with this simple thing? You probably tell me 3 things and they're all being done. Yes?
So this is Brad Fellows.
It is.
Right. So he did a presentation to our technology and strategy class.
So I can't wait to tell you the story that he told you about this thing, because I was around, this is basically Brad and I throwing a tennis ball in the air figuring how we can do something funny as a side project to have the most downloads on iTunes. We were like, oh my god, you can totally make 1 million downloads on iTunes. You can totally do that. So what happened?
He, if I'm doing this not messed up, he was talking about kind of the second screen phenomenon. This is exactly weird. And so basically, something like 78% of people always have a second screen open when they're watching their TV.
Yep.
And so trying to find a way to tie advertising from what's on your TV into what's on your second screen, so your phone or your computer or whatever.
So you met this thing, now everyone has an app, everyone's getting conditioned to use the app to change the channel. So that's the first version of this app, right? TV guide, press a button, changes the channel on your set-top box, right? Then a bunch of cable and media dudes come along, right? From Comcast, from DirecTV, and they're thinking to themselves, now wait a minute. So the iOS devices are getting bigger, right? You understand the platform, there's going to be pads and minis and all sorts of other stuff. There's also studies that show that, I don't have television, but I watched people watch television, and when they're watching television, they're interacting with some other device at the same time. Either a laptop, Wikipedia, I wonder so I see Brad Pitt's in a new movie, World War Z, what's up with Brad Pitt, I do all that kind of stuff, right? So this is the second screen. And so these guys came in en masse, right, and were just we know exactly what you need to do with this thing now that you have everyone's attention. Is you need to create texturally relevant ads, you need to create all sorts of interesting interactive experiences that somehow harness, leverage, amplify the user experience. So there's two sides of that, right? What they mean by you can amplify user experience is create ways you can sell shit to people. But at the end of the day, ITV is interested on the design end of actually building things that other people find valuable in the media experience, and they're creating communities. So you're exactly right. But go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question about privacy laws. So Microsoft tried to do this with the Kinect, and I don't know if you remember that. When they brought out the Kinect, one of the things they advertised to their strategic partners was, this is a camera people are literally going to have in their homes, and it takes a screenshot of everything in their home. And so if you're watching like when you turn on your Xbox, it automatically turns on. So like if you're watching the Super Bowl and you're wearing like a Niners jersey, they were originally going to try and tailor ads for that. But they got so much bad press about spying on people.
Yeah, man, that's creepy.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like it's classic Microsoft. Like, yeah, people are totally gonna want this. It's like so no one's just like, hey, man, don't say that.
And for one of the best posts I saw on this, because it was on IO9, and somebody said, yeah, my Xbox is a jerk. It keeps sending me ads for penis enlargement or something like that. He's like, I gotta stop playing Kinect Nude or something like that. So, but anyway, that was the whole idea, and that was like, I just wonder how they got around that with ITV. Because I mean, I know it's not a camera, but it is like getting data from a point that is definitely private.
Oh yeah. Well, the way to get around that is the terms of usage when you download the application. And that's the way to get around it. It doesn't solve the problem that you're describing, which is how the user, as this thing scales up, how the user experience is going to feel about contextually generated ads. The only reason I bring that up is to bring up this idea that to not minimize the exemplar that I gave you here, which is we did this in like a few minutes. It's the functional equivalent of throwing a tennis ball in the air with the silly idea that you have. There's nothing that would prevent this from getting built and deployed. It may or may not catch on, right? And I've seen one catch on, and the one that caught on is ITV. It's now like 6 years old. They've taken a fair amount of venture financing, and they're building a ginormous building. Actually, they're converting a ginormous building in the river bottoms in Provo, which is going to be basically this giant funhouse for engineers. And they're hiring. I said 14 people. By the way, I just said they're hiring. For that, hiring. And I'm looking for people to work there. Because I went down there yesterday, and the whole point of my visit down there was Brad going, we need to find people that are awesome. Really awesome people. And Ken went down with me. And that's the story of IoT, right? We have an ex-post narrative about the visionary second screen experience and how we had this conjecture that blah, 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 blah. The truth of the matter is, it was a tennis ball, a TV guide, it was remote control. They got downloaded, and then some people saw, some DirecTV dudes and some Comcast dudes got on the iTunes store and said, oh, what the heck's this? And they came and saw what you could do with it and imagined what they could do if they could then have a experience with that. Now, why would they, the question then becomes, finally I'm going to give it to you guys, why would DirecTV or why would Comcast or why would anyone work with a podunk company of like 14 or 15 dumpy engineers in Provo, Utah? And the answer is the following. Because Brad had tried and discarded a series of, over time, as they've been thinking through the second screen problem, they've tried, instrumented, and failed on at least, 10, maybe more, iterations of the second screen experience. Said another way, to DirecTV or Comcast, these guys actually know more about, because they've been able to instrument usage patterns, they know more about what works and what doesn't work around the second screen than arguably anyone on the planet except for maybe a couple research labs and perhaps Microsoft. They know a ton. And as evidenced by this, when I go down and talk to Brad and I say, hey, have you thought about doing this? And he goes, it's funny, we tried doing that, we ran it, we rolled that feature out, we watched it being used, and didn't get used the way we thought it would be used, this other thing happened. And then this other feature that we imagined wasn't going to be really valuable, as it turns out it was super valuable, so we started doing this other stuff in order to see if we can amplify on that, and it worked. These guys' aggregate IQ on the issue of second screen is incredibly high. So every project, even a side project, even one where you're engaging a series of iterations, all end up making you the smartest person on the planet at something. That's the way to think about, the final way to think about experiments. But you're using them to get smarter so that your team, in aggregate, becomes the smartest in the world at some very narrow and interesting thing. And when that happens, DirecTV or Comcast will come. They will first give you money to have you continue to do that, and then likely they will buy you. That's usually how it works. So in Structure, because it is currently instrumenting usage patterns on online education, as is Coursera and a few other people, you guys are not in a race to build the best learning management application. They're in the race to aggregate all the IQ around what works and doesn't work in online education. That's what that is the game you're playing, right? Yeah. So were you confused about that? I mean, you guys know you're doing that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I was just making sure. Yeah, otherwise, it's on you. So, with those two anecdotes, please listen to KickFIX, not Flix, right?
Fix.
In the same vein, which is be intellectually playful, be open, be in a position mentally where you're thinking about analog or adjacent businesses, where you're thinking about risks that actually matter. Don't feel you need to participate and give them a risk if you don't think it's valuable. Contextualize them in terms of, is this a technical risk? Is there a market risk? Is this a usage risk? Or is this a Rob Whipper's turntable problem where it's not really valuable at all because some other and adjacent business offers 80% of the value, so you don't need to build the other 20%. So that's kind of the space to be in for the next 2 to 3 weeks as you're thinking about these businesses and giving your peers feedback. Are you guys going to use a PC?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do this. And the architecture of the remaining part of the evening is we're going to have a dialogue here, and then we're done. For those of you who want to come up to Snowbird, you're welcome to have food on me. And apparently there's lots of free rooms. How many free rooms are there?
Well, I don't know that we have one. We'll see.
What is this event?
We're just going to crash it. So I was going to invite you guys to Stoneground this evening, but I'm not going to do that. For those of you who want to come up to Snowbird to the area and crush that thing and get free food and drinks of whatever kind you want, whether that's cranberry juice or alcohol, you can come. So that's my invitation. So Snowbird area, and about 40 minutes after this, we're going to go there. There should be lots of cool people there.
What is Snowbird? What is
Oh, there's a conference for renewable energy technologies. We're just going to go crash it and take all their stuff. It's okay. I did it last year, not for another conference. It's totally okay, right? People are used to this sort of behavior by me. Really?
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, and you guys, your job is to help make us smarter. That's your job. Our job is to listen and give you thoughts, and your job is to make us smarter.
Alright, cool. So yeah, this is our team. We have, just to give you some background about our team, we have some finance guy, we have an operations guy, we have an architect, a real estate developer, somewhere, and there's a software nerd in there too. But basically what we're going to talk about is we went through these screening processes for this idea that we can call KickFIX. And we wanted to talk about how we went through that. Some of the lessons we learned along the way. We did some testing and experimentation with this idea, and then some instrumentation we do to try to measure that. And so, yeah, so to make everyone smarter, we kind of wanted to talk about some of the lessons that we learned while doing this. So yeah, so this is kind of what we did to kind of screen some of our ideas. So basically what we did is everybody in our group here brought to the table the ideas that we thought would be like, hey, this would be a really cool business idea. And so what we did is we actually applied that business model canvas to those to kind of try to define and address a lot of the issues that each of the ideas would have. So, for example, who would we, like if we were to do this idea, who would we sell it to, or Or if we did this idea, what are some of the things that on a day-to-day basis that would have to happen, or and then ultimately, like, what is the value that it would be? So we realized that, this is would be an evolving thing for each idea, right? Like, what we thought right now at the get-go for each of these ideas would probably change. But at least this kind of gave us a way to screen things and, like, if one of them required, we're going to need a space shuttle to make this happen, that's a little bit harder thing to overcome.
So did the business model canvas help you identify dropouts? Or
Yeah, to an
Yeah, we'll
extent,
talk about
yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt it. So
No,
you found the business model canvas exercise to be useful.
And super valuable exercise.
Cool.
Yeah, because there were some things on there that were like, so yes, the point of this slide here is, so I had actually, one of the idea that I had presented was a project that I had been working on with a few other software guys, and we call it Project Vendetta, if you've ever seen B for Vendetta, because we were all pissed off at the corporate world, basically. So, the reason why we bring this up is because difficulty that we've been having with my experience working with this is like our motivation on it is just over the last couple of months and the reason why is because the idea itself, like, yes, we believe that it had the potential to make money. Yes, we think we know we can make it work. Yes, we think we've been able to sell it. I've talked to some people in this class and they probably know what I'm talking about. But like lately, it's just like, man, we don't want to work on anything anymore. And so one of the first lessons that we learned was this idea of motivation. It was an idea that could work, but like now in retrospect, having worked on it, it's like we just don't care about it. Like it's not cool. It's not interesting. It just makes money. So the first lesson I think that we learned is, you gotta care about what you're doing. I think about a lot of the lectures that, and some of the guest speakers that you brought in. And, like every single one of them, like they truly care about what it is that they're doing. And so for me, personally, like that's one of the biggest lessons. And that was actually a big part of our screening process because ultimately we came up with some ideas that he had come up and he was just like all excited about it. And I was like, I'm cool.
Yeah, we got together and we all got our own individual ideas, and from the get-go, I thought my idea really sucked. And so we took this really analytical approach to it, and we realized how bad my idea sucked. So we weeded mine aside. Andy's idea was a little bit too far-fetched for this assignment. Cameron had a good idea, but he had no passion for it really. It just boiled down to, after all this analytical approach to it, we went to what we were most passionate about and what would be best for this assignment. Matt and Pete were both extremely passionate about their two ideas.
So my idea is, I have a frustration in my profession is dealing with zoning and building code. It's very heavy to sort yourself through and stay organized, but it's an environment because it defines legally what you can build. And so I was like, why doesn't somebody build like the turbo tax equivalent, where they will ask you questions about your project and narrow down, pick out what's applicable to your project and not make you sort through this big mess. And so that's why I called it turbo code. And so the next slide kind of gives you an idea of what we've got to. Oh, you took it out. Okay. No, you didn't.
Well, this is what it spits out.
So it spits out something like this in a dream scenario. It tells you this is your building, this is what you got to do, and it's tied geographically to your address and where your projects are.
So let me try to understand. So I didn't quite get the problem set other than it was a pain in the ass to do X, Y, Z.
It's a pain in the ass and it's hard to, the code's a series of like, in this condition, this is the rule, but here's an exception, and go to this part. So it'd be a way to keep that organized and you answer this one question. It only asks you the question once. And then once you know, my building's on 4 stories, everything's dealing with things above, it's wrong.
And you're the output of that
well,
process?
This is a graphic representation of some of the requirements.
Okay.
Will be your building envelope. Got it. I didn't want to dive too technical into it, but I just talked about it.
Well, the part I find most puzzling that would help me is understand, so is this a pain in the ass, meaning it's, what I got is the analog business is the tax code, which is like, you ask a few questions and you weed out a bunch of stuff, you put a few buttons and you get your taxes done. And that's the great gift of TurboTax.
And you're saying the analogous problem in the architecture industry is building code. What I
IRS code, building code.
Yeah, code. So my puzzle is this I know what happens when I fail to produce a compliant tax return. It increases risk, and I have to do it, it's required. It increases risk and I reduce time. So for a thing that I have to do, it reduces the time and diminishes the risk. And that's a good thing. And is that the analogous problem here,
Yes.
which is you have to do it?
Have to do it to get your building design.
Got it. So reduces the time
Reduces time.
and reduces risk in what way?
It reduces, well, the risk would be,
Is it just saving, it's saving time?
saving
If you
time.
go, if you go in for proposal and they deny you because you missed a code, you've got to go back to the drawing board.
I can see myself going over 1,000 lines of text and missing one small thing and not doing that.
So you guys know this problem.
It's delays in your project.
Well, just what they described.
In real estate, development time is money. Clock's ticking.
I get that part.
Just not doing it.
And one more question that I'll let other people do. How do they, if you don't want to read the code yourself, is there an analogous H&R block?
That's why people hire architects.
Got it. So the other problem in this space is that for the home dude, the solution is, I'll just go like find H&R block, right? But in your case, you don't have an H&R block to go to because you are H&R block.
Right.
Now I understand the problem. Sorry.
Oh, I just had a question. So, like, theoretically, if you built over an easement, like currently, the city can come in and knock down the building. This would prevent that.
That'd be one, yes.
Cool.
But, so then, that easement's a good segue into P-type.
Yeah, so I come from real estate as well, and looking at opportunities. For example, this is the community I go home. Okay, I go along Wasatch Boulevard and I turn down toward the south. There's this site right here that I hate. I detest it. It is an eyesore. It's a blight for the entire valley.
How do you really feel about that? Share.
It drives me nuts. And here's the thing. It's owned not by a municipality. I can't go to the city of Salt Lake City. I can't go to them and say, hey, you've got to fix this up. It's privately owned. Okay? And the people who own it just, they don't care. Okay? They don't care to do anything about it. I would like to do something about it. Okay? But that's obviously going to cost money. I need to know what can be done there. Okay? And so then I thought, well, sitting in the venture trends class that we had a whole lecture night on crowdfunding. I was like, wow, what if we applied Kickstarter to real estate development? You know, what if I'm not going to pony up the money to develop this for someone else if they don't want to sell it, but I would love to fix it up. And maybe someone like Ken who's driving this cool Audi drives by every day and maybe he's like me, I like that property. He values my drive home. I would put down several thousands of dollars if someone would just make it less than a nice one. Okay, that's one scenario that would be so cool. Kickstarter, as we know, it's a way to fund these projects. So we looked at these two projects.
Can I ask another question about your project? So I want to make sure that I'm following it correctly. One thing that's missing for me here is I get that there's and I love, you led with something that I understand, which is like you are maniacally angry at that particular swap. Yeah, and that's awesome. I applaud you raising it. But what I'm wondering is if you had a second slide that I would love to see there, you one that showed all those plots of land in red, right? Basically, you know what I mean? It's like privately owned eyesores. Do you understand what I'm getting? It's like this is not just a problem that I face. This is like a global. This is like a regional problem, right?
I'm happy to include that in that
But
slide.
I'm wondering.
We have those. I have them.
And so there's a ton of those eyesores. Yes, let me ask. I actually never. Are there lots of eyesores in your world that you guys, as property owners, those of you who have homeowners, that you're just like, my friend Jason is a homeowner, and there's a place called the Stinky House on his street that drives him crazy. Do you guys have those?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone's nodding their head, so it's clearly.
Yeah.
Ken's house would be the Stinky House, by the way, because his house is in a constant state of disrepair because he's putting the helipad in and all that. And there's like cranes and shit up there, and everyone's just like, you know. Okay, so is this a problem?
this is a reasonable problem. I saw it. Okay.
As a data point on this, I'm pretty sure that in New Jersey, they have the ability on your state taxes to donate money to like the Boys and Girls Club or some other something, and nobody ever gave you money. And then somebody had the great idea to let you fix a pothole in the city. And almost everybody put money in to fix a pothole. And they would say like, I want this pothole at such and such an address fixed for my $200.
And as we looked at analogs for this type of thing, for example, Chicago, they have what I think called discretionary budgeting, in which they let people participate in the $2 million pool and say, we want to vote on where this money goes.
Nice.
And what can it fix up?
So this is scaling up and crowdizing this discretionary pool and privatizing, right?
Yeah. And what we liked about Kickstarter as well is that it takes you. Who here is knows what Kickstarter is about? It walks you through the process of developing a campaign, right? It actually helps people put together that funny video or whatever it takes to organize a campaign. And so it's like, well, why don't we develop KickFIX, which is something that can help people, facilitate people make things happen. And that's where we combine, where we saw the combination of the two ideas that we were passionate about.
And we're thinking, we'll go with the KickFIX thing, but at the same time, pen testing, it'll inform my projects doing that testing.
Right, so explore the opportunities and then also make it happen. So testing, we said, well, let's start testing.
So on testing, we decided to, first we did a conceptual test, and then we were going to move on to analogs, existing analogs, and then we realized we need to really regionalize our testing. So the first thing we did, we put a post up on Reddit, and we were just like, hey, would anybody be willing to donate money to fix up this project, whatever it was? And it was a huge failure. I don't think we got a response. It was horrible. So it taught us a very important lesson that although the concept is global, the eyesores are everywhere, the projects are very local. So we were able to identify a market segment that we needed to localize our efforts as far as advertising for seed testing.
Okay, so let me make sure I follow the test. So I totally got the fact this is a test, and I love the fact that you just got an action and found a way to do that. That's totally boss. And your conclusion, you ran this test and it was the entire Reddit community?
Yeah.
Okay, and the experience was that you didn't, this test didn't generate any data at all. So there's two conclusions you could draw. Right? One is which is you didn't understand how to get to the Reddit community, which there's I'm running through the alternative explanations, right? So you didn't get a false positive. By the way, this is great. Didn't know how to talk to the Reddit community. And the conclusion that you had was which seems completely reasonable to me.
That nobody outside of the local area cares, right? If someone puts up a pay in Salt Lake City, we have to spar money on, and you're in Washington. Yeah. So we needed to regionalize our efforts on
Okay.
Per plot per house.
Fair enough.
Next step was to try to look at analogs and say, well, is there a platform out there that we can use? Kickstarter, we looked at that, we looked at all the campaigns that they do. What do they for, right? Artists, music, stuff like that. They don't do anything real estate related. Fundly is an innovative online private funding platform, but it's for charitable organizations. They don't do real estate. Fundrise is actually innovative as well, but that's a for-profit venture. That's a way to get investors for given properties that they have. Then we looked at Indiegogo, and that turned out to be a good analog for us. And we did find some real estate ventures. For example, this one right here, they want to build a park. It's a campaign that's similar to Kickstarter. It's the current photos of the park, show what they would like it to be. And they're actually pretty successful. They're pretty successful when we've got several other examples. So we decided, well, let's build our own platform.
Okay. So again, slowing this down. The next text in the stack around the regional thing would have been figuring out whether you could do a regional test. I get that. And so what's the connection, the cognitive connection that caused you guys to look at that stuff, discover Indiegogo, had that, and then go, I thought you were going to say, great, let's work with Indiegogo and build this up. But no, you built your own. Help me understand why you chose to do that.
Well, it's a blend of those two things, actually.
Okay.
We said let's just partner with Indiegogo, let's create our own platform.
Got it.
Okay. And all it is, if you look at it, it says our partners, Indiegogo. It's related to Indiegogo.
Okay.
Okay, and how do we make it as Andy pointed out, how do we make it a local thing?
Yeah.
Well, we identify a site, we've got to have some kind of landing page that people can get to.
Got it. Now I understand. So now you're going to use your landing page as the mechanism through which you get at your regional activity.
That's right. So if you look at here to the top right, you say, okay, how to launch a campaign? Well, that's very similar to Kickstarter or Indiegogo. It's just like, this is how you do it. There are some extra steps obviously involved. What does that involve? It involves scribble code, right? Because that first step is someone who sees a property and is curious about it, would like to do something about it. Well, who owns it and what can be done? And so that's a portal,
so that becomes lead gen for your.
And if you want to visit that site right now, that's our QR code. Just scan it with your phone right now and go right to the site. Okay. And we've got some sample projects here that are Indiegogo projects. We anticipate once we start doing our own. We post those there as well. So we're pretty excited about that. The platform we did it on was Weebly, because we're going to all dime, the free website of Weebly. They provide some analytics. It's very rudimentary. Google Analytics, you can put that, plug that in, you can get a lot of new data from that as well. And Spark is one that we'll talk about just a minute. And that has to do with analyzing your node response. But the question is, so how do we get a campaign going and how do we engage customers? Well, so we, say we've got a new properties, we have a dude out there with a clipboard, or if we get a babe with a clipboard, would that get more response? How do we engage people? We pretty much kind of think that we see ourselves putting some kind of sign that is a prompt for someone that says it sees an eyesore piece of property. It's like, okay, well, what's going on? Right? And so,
But you don't actually have rights to put that on that.
well, that's not a simple process. So that's why we haven't gotten it all in the way. We've all scoured places. We've got some properties. The one that I pointed to at the very first, learned a lot about it. It's actually UDOT that owns it. It's right-of-way property. It's a very complicated issue, and that's part of where the value comes in for KickFIX, is that it helps people navigate, and TurboPick together helps people navigate that process.
Have you explored alternative things to fix other than just the jerk that lives on my block's house? Like, say, for example, the family in poverty on the other side of town. What about, or have you
Yes, we have
done a little Reddit test for them?
No. Well, we have tested in that Indiegogo, for example, if you look at some of the samples we even have posted, one is like, let's fix up this synagogue. Let's fix out, let's build a little park that's a spiritual gathering place where people have lost their things. Stuff like that. It's fairly broad in its application.
But this, okay, so this is no longer targeted just for that lot you drive by.
Yeah, no, that's
So what would be totally epic is if you did a campaign and then the guy didn't know about it, or the homeowner, and you just show up and you're like, hey, here's like $700-800 and we've done the code and we're like gonna totally paint your place because it totally sucks and it's nice. And that's not what's gonna happen, but that would be hilarious.
That was on the city of Holiday planning. And we're like, you know of anything? It's like, it's not so simple.
But I still think it would be fun to have a real campaign with your statement, these signs with telephone poles and see interesting in what you have in there.
Well, I know this is something, I don't know if it's exactly like this, but Steve Provo, there's an organization, Neighborhood Works, they actually do something called Paint Your Heart Out, which they identify crappy living houses and they go approach the owners and say, hey, paint your house.
That's cool.
And then a bunch of neighborhood people show up.
They make very cool. They make relatively small blimps. I don't know if you could
just hover it over the house. This house sucks. Let's fix it. Martha, what's happening? That's epic.
No, that's where it comes down to like a brand. Is there some kind of brand thing where, in real estate, when I was marketing corporate buildings and stuff like that, it's not like you're going to drive by, shooting a picture of that sign, scanning that QR code right then and there. So the idea of having a branded thing, where people be like, oh, I know what that is. I'll go to KickFix.com. That's what this said. I'll go to KickFix.com and type in A1. And that'll take me to that site and that particular campaign. Whatever.
I mean, this is a little early, but what would you propose if the owners are not cooperative? 'Cause I mean, from what I understand, owners' rights are going to trump whatever we want, right?
Eminent domain.
So that was.
This is something that Kevin was really good about in bringing up as we talked about as a group. Kickstarter, for example, mediation of what kind of projects make it through is very important. They're very selective about what projects get posted on their website. And that would be legal counsel, administrative counsel, municipalities. That would be an important part of our filter as far as what projects made it onto the KickFix pipeline.
But I mean, in all cases, you have to have the owner sign off on the project.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're the city.
Right. That would be part of the process of starting the campaign, is that you would have talked to the owner.
You would never post a project that wasn't owner
Our
responsible.
process would help you identify who the owner is, so you can actually approach them.
Maybe I missed that.
That'll probably help you facilitate help if there's a good owner story there too.
Yeah, but if you go to our website, you'll see that there's a very rudimentary starting kind of outline of, okay, this is how you should go about it.
So if I understand how this is working then, I mean, part of what's interesting about Turbo Code is most of what you need, or a fair amount of what you would need to do in order to spec and approve a project, you're going to be able to do with the rules that you're describing. You have to do that anyway. And then the other part is this owner, the risk, or the thing I haven't heard that you haven't mitigated yet is the delicate dance with the owner of the property.
And that's politics and PR and relationships. I don't know if there's any technology solution.
I can see an owner saying, I got this piece of job, but I'm going to rate the interest in this getting 60 value on it. I have to do that. It says, all these people out there and all do it.
So there's a lot of, that's a good question.
I was just going to ask what fix means in your mind, because as I look at this, when you see a piece of property that you detest or that you'd like to see improved, for me, if you were searching for people and saying, we'd like to put a park here, and are a number of people willing to donate money to actually buy this piece of property from the owner, then I can see value in investing money. But fix, right, leaves a lot to be determined as far as what you qualify as fixed. Does that mean, turning over dirt and pulling weeds out? So as you guys have looked at this, have you explored the idea of, well, if we're using something like Kickstarter, are we actually asking people to become involved as far as owning or trying to buy a property and say, okay, we want to turn this into a park for the community, and will people donate for that project?
Very good question. We've seen both. We've seen the whole spectrum. Where we've seen people who want to buy it, fix it up. Fundraise was another analog that we refer to. They actually go out and buy, they secure the property, and then they launch the campaign to get money, get investors involved. Yeah. So it's kind of like they've secured it already. Yeah. It's a platform. That's the key for the whole scalability of this thing. When you talk about politics and stuff, we want this to scale globally, right? And why does Kickstarter scale so well? Well, it's because it's a tool that anybody can use anywhere. And that's all we want this to be. We don't want it to be tied to it, or just, too tied down to anything. So yeah, it can be a wide range of things.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's going to be those around that area that are most interested in fixing it. Neighbors, people who drive by it. So would an alternative option be to create an HOA and have that neighborhood create an HOA and have covenants to enforce certain things like this?
Mm-hmm.
Is that another option?
Part of the reason why we want to create that platform is because we see that as potentially being one of those kind of, it turns into a whole social environment where, there's a link that says, okay, news. Okay, there's one other link. How do you start up an HOA? What are different ways we can address this problem? So yeah, it becomes just a hub.
So you can almost just help communities establish HOAs.
Yeah. It's just a lot of people don't even know what an HOA is. So that's great. But you could be kind of proactive and start a campaign
I apologize, but what's the ROI on one's investment other than beautifying that area? So is there some type of financial incentive on those who contribute to this, or is it simply to make an area?
If you look at Kickstarter campaigns, for example, and even like Indiegogo or something like that, it's actually a pretty important part of it is that they offer rewards. So if you go down like the right-hand side of the screen, for $10 you get a rock that says, appreciate you for it, and it can go all the way down. And you offer, or you get a t-shirt somehow for free, or you have a brick on the wall. So as far as ROI, it's...
So in terms of investment of the money, somehow getting money back to a certain extent, like an investment would be, that's not necessarily part of the business model.
No, this is purely and again, we wouldn't be creating the project like the first truck projects, but it would be a platform for people to create their own projects, and that person would determine if but they're not purchasing their land, they're just beautifying the neighborhood. So the return for the investor would be a beautiful place, a park, whatever. But each project would specify if there is a plaque or if there is whatever it is. But it's not something that is an investment. It's not an investment that would give a return. It's an investment in more like a church contribution. Yeah, it's an investment in your neighborhood.
Then you put structure. Yeah, every county has its own road. Instead of Kickstarter, how do they make money, right? And why would you want to scale so big? Because Kickstarter takes 5% of whatever funds have been made successful. You scale that, next to
What about, you buy a place, my experience is, you put gravel on 2 tables, they haven't done it.
Right. That has to be addressed in the pitch, because no one's going to, you're not going to contribute money unless you're not going to throw money out for something that it's just going to die, right? So that's got to become part of the pitch. And that's part of the education is, look, you've got to put together a really compelling plan.
I wonder if someone they've talked to the owners of the property to say, hey, after I don't know how much we really talked about that, but yeah, I mean, what if like the owners after it was like, okay, we made you this awesome sweet garden or something or whatever. Oh, but by the way, now that you've done that, like, why don't you take care of it? Maybe that could be something. I think that's really comfortable.
So how do you guys plan to advertise and get your name out there?
The check. No, that's a good question.
That's kind of, well, yeah, I mean, we're still testing this, right? That's kind of what we're doing now is, I mean, based on our Reddit, that's what we're doing. Okay, that stuff, so maybe we need to start doing a little bit more locally. I mean, we're still in the stages, right?
We're going to have a live poll in just a couple of slides from now. We're going to ask you guys what you think what we should do. Okay.
So if you're doing all this upfront work, vetting projects that are coming through and posting to the site, who's paying for the legal fees and all of these to kind of keep the light on, especially if you're doing something and projects up?
Yeah.
Who's paying for that? Okay.
No, I think okay, this may pivot our discussion here, but I want to hear more about turbo code. Have you done anything to test its viability, or haven't either for that? What's been done here? That's an interesting piece of this.
Yeah, that was part. The reason why we bring that up is that was part of our screening process, right? Like that was one idea we were really contemplating. Yeah, we kind of moved more towards.
There is a somewhat of an analog that we'll show you in 2 slides.
So it's interesting. So before, like, in this, Sunday, April 7th is the date of this, so this is like last week. So you're aware of the Founder Institute. So there's an LA. So just before you start to write off this idea as like goofy, like a LA-based startup got $500,000 in seed financing. They're called Realty Mogul. The only difference between this and Realty Mogul is that they're focused on, they're trying to solve a different problem with a different revenue model, and they have a different technical hurdle. So what they want to do is have individual investors invest in pre-vetted investment properties to improve, and then kick off cash flow. So it's what's that?
Yeah, it's when they become a
That's the
big state building
Fundrise.
company
That's the
quick and you
Fundrise
can
model.
sell
So,
it.
but Fundrise is doing the same deal. So, ideas as rough as this, and as focused and have with similar amounts, but distinct but similar analogous types of technical and market risk, are winning. In this case, the Founders Institute competition. They got into Techstars. So just to let you know, it's like so. Startup is a graduate of the Founder Institute and the Microsoft Techstars Accelerator. Translation: they went to Founders Institute, thrashed around for a while, didn't do very well. Went to the Techstars Accelerator, graduated, meaning didn't get funded, thrashed around for a while, and announced a $500,000 seed round from a handful of angel investors, parenthetically, not the investors from Founder Institute or Microsoft Techstars, which is where you should have been invested. So washed out of the, I'm sorry, don't put this on. Don't get lost. Yeah. So I'm being I'm reading between the lines. I'm making this up for a fact.